There's a hidden skill the most perceptive people possess that has nothing to do with psychology books or body language courses. They can read people instantly, not through technique, but through presence. Allan Watts discovered this wasn't about learning tricks or studying micro-expressions. It was about dropping the filters that prevent you from seeing what's already obvious. I'm about to reveal why Watts believed that reading people isn't a skill you develop, but a natural ability you recover. Why the people best at understanding others aren't analyzing them, but simply seeing them without projection. And why this isn't manipulation or cold reading, it's the most compassionate form of human connection possible. If you've been trying to learn how to read people through body language guides and psychology tricks, Watts would say you're going about it backwards. You're adding layers of analysis when the real skill is removing the layers of your own projection. You're trying to become better at interpretation when what you need is to stop interpreting and start perceiving. Here's what Watts understood that changes everything. Most people can't read others because they're too busy reading themselves into others. They're projecting their own fears, desires, assumptions, and patterns onto everyone they meet. They're not seeing the person in front of them. They're seeing a mirror that reflects their own unconscious material. The people who can read anyone instantly aren't doing anything special. They've just stopped doing something unnecessary. They've stopped projecting. They've stopped filtering. They've dropped the ego's need to categorize, judge, and defend. And in that spaciousness, other people become transparent. Not because you've learned secret techniques, but because you've finally gotten out of your own way. Here's what Watts understood that explains everything. The biggest barrier to reading people is your own mind. Right now, when you meet someone, you're not experiencing them directly. You're experiencing them through a thick filter of your own conditioning. Your past experiences, your traumas, your desires, your fears, your cultural programming, all of it is distorting what you see. It's like trying to see clearly through a dirty window while insisting the problem is with what's on the other side. Watts called this the veil of concepts. You meet someone, and immediately your mind starts labeling. They seem confident, they're probably arrogant, they remind me of my ex, they're wearing expensive clothes, so they must be wealthy and probably superficial. None of this is perception, it's all projection. You're not reading them, you're reading your own story onto them. Way 1. Notice when you're labeling instead of observing. Watts would say the first step to reading people is catching yourself in the act of interpretation. Someone walks into a room. Notice how quickly your mind creates a complete story about them. They look nervous, they must be insecure. But did you actually see nervousness, or did you see fidgeting and then interpret it through your own understanding of what nervousness looks like? This is the difference between perception and projection. Way 2. Practice the beginner's mind. Watts borrowed this from Zen Buddhism. Approach every person as if you've never met a human before. Drop all your categories. Don't look for types of people. Don't compare them to others you've known. Just look at them as a completely novel phenomenon. When you do this, something astonishing happens. You start seeing details you'd normally miss, because your preconceptions would have filled in the blanks. Way 3. Feel the energy before analyzing the behavior. Watts understood that humans are energetic beings before they're psychological beings. When someone walks into a room, you can feel them before you think about them. But most people skip this feeling stage and go straight to analysis. They're dressed casually, so they're probably laid back. Wrong. Feel first. Is the energy tight or loose? Contracted or expansive? Defensive or open? This feeling level perception is far more accurate than any behavioral analysis. Watts experienced this himself. He described meeting someone at a dinner party who seemed perfectly charming, saying all the right things, smiling appropriately, but Watts felt something off. Not in their behavior, in their energy. There was a tightness, a performance quality. Everyone else was charmed. Watts was simply present enough to feel the dissonance between the performance and the actual state of being. Later, it came out that the person was going through a severe crisis they were desperately hiding. Watts didn't deduce this. He felt it. This is the foundation of reading people. Stop interpreting, start perceiving. Your analytical mind is actually terrible at understanding humans because it's too slow and too distorted by your own conditioning. But your direct perception, the felt sense of someone's energy, the immediate impression before thought, is stunningly accurate. The problem is we've been trained to distrust it and rely on analysis instead. Watts's second insight: everyone is constantly broadcasting exactly who they are. The problem isn't that people are hard to read. The problem is you're not actually listening. Most conversations aren't dialogues. They're two monologues happening simultaneously. You're waiting for your turn to talk, rehearsing what you'll say next, filtering their words through your own agenda. You're not listening to them. You're listening to yourself think about them. Way 4, listen for what they're not saying. Watts taught that silence contains as much information as speech. Someone tells you about their successful career but never mentions relationships. They're telling you something. Someone describes their life in perfect detail but avoids talking about how they feel about it. They're revealing something crucial. The gaps in someone's story are as informative as the content. Way 5. Notice the energy behind the words, not just the words themselves. Two people can say "I'm fine" with completely different energies. One means it, one is crying for help. Watts would say most people only hear the words because they're operating on the surface level of communication. But the real conversation is happening underneath, in tone, in pace, in the quality of presence someone brings to what they're saying. Way 6. Watch what lights them up. Watts observed that people become most authentically themselves when talking about what genuinely excites them. Everything else is performance, persona, social conditioning. But mention something they truly care about, and suddenly the mask drops. Their voice changes, their body opens, their energy shifts. This is them. Everything else is costume. Way 7. Notice their relationship to time. Do they constantly reference the past? They're stuck there, always planning the future. They're avoiding now. Fully present in the conversation, they're psychologically integrated. Watts believed you could understand someone's entire psychological structure by observing how they relate to time. Way 8. Listen for repeated patterns in their stories. Watts taught that people's narratives reveal their core beliefs about reality. Someone who always tells stories where they're the victim is showing you their fundamental relationship to life. Someone who frames everything as an adventure is revealing their core orientation. You don't need to psychoanalyze them. Just listen for the pattern that runs through all their stories. That's their operating system. One of Watts's students described this awakening. I was trying to figure out if a potential business partner was trustworthy. I was analyzing his credentials, checking references, looking for red flags in his behavior. Then I remembered Watts's teaching about listening. I sat with this person for 2 hours and just listened. Not to judge, not to evaluate, just to hear him. And by the end, I knew everything I needed to know. He told me exactly who he was. Not through what he said, but through how he said it. What he emphasized, what he avoided, where his energy went. I didn't trust him, and I was right. The key insight here: people are not mysterious. They're obvious. They're broadcasting their inner state constantly through 1,000 micro signals. You just have to stop being so busy with your own thoughts that you miss the transmission. Here's what Watts understood about embodiment. Consciousness and body are not separate. Reading someone's body is reading their consciousness. Western culture has this bizarre split where we think the real person is the words they say, and the body is just a vehicle. Watts saw this as complete delusion. Your body is not carrying your consciousness. Your body is your consciousness in physical form. Everything you feel, think, and experience is simultaneously happening in your body, which means if you learn to read the body, you're reading the person at the most fundamental level. Way 9. Notice where tension lives in their body. Watts taught that psychological tension always manifests as physical tension. Someone who's chronically defensive will have tight shoulders, like they're perpetually bracing for attack. Someone carrying shame will collapse their chest, making themselves smaller. Someone who controls everything will have rigid posture, afraid to let anything flow naturally. You can see their entire psychological structure in how they hold their body. Way 10, watch their breathing. This was one of Watts's favorite tells. Shallow breath means anxiety, disconnection, living in the head. Deep, relaxed breath means presence, groundedness, psychological integration. You can literally watch someone's state of consciousness by watching how they breathe. And most people are breathing like they're in constant danger, which tells you everything about their inner experience. Way 11, observe their relationship to space. Watts noticed that confident people take up space naturally, not aggressively, but comfortably. Insecure people make themselves small, apologetic for existing. Controlling people invade others' space. Traumatized people need lots of buffer space around them. You don't need to psychoanalyze this. Just notice how someone relates to physical space, and you're seeing their psychological relationship to the world. Way 12, look at their hands. Watts said, hands don't lie because most people don't think to control them. Clenched fists or hands in pockets suggest hiding or defending. Open hands suggest openness. Fidgeting hands suggest anxiety. Still hands suggest presence. Watch someone's hands during a conversation, and you'll see their actual state underneath whatever their face is performing. Way 13, notice the congruence between face and body. Here's where Watts's insight gets really practical. When someone's face and body are telling different stories, the body is telling the truth. They're smiling but their shoulders are tense. They're performing happiness but feeling stress. Their words are confident but they're making themselves physically small. The body reveals the truth the persona is trying to hide. Watts himself was masterful at this. He could be in a lecture hall with hundreds of people and zero in on who was genuinely present versus who was performing presence. Not through judgment, through simple observation. Someone could nod along, take notes, look engaged, but Watts would feel their absence. Their body was there, but they weren't in it. And conversely, someone could be sitting perfectly still, no visible engagement, but Watts would know they were deeply present because their body was relaxed, their breathing was natural, their being was settled. This is what most people miss. We're taught to read faces and ignore bodies, but faces lie easily. Bodies don't. The face is the ego's billboard. The body is the truth beneath the advertisement. Here's where Watts goes beyond conventional psychology. Every human is an energetic field, and you can feel fields before you understand them intellectually. Western science is finally catching up to what Eastern philosophy has known for millennia. Humans aren't just physical bodies, they're electromagnetic beings. You have a measurable energy field extending beyond your skin, and whether you realize it or not, you're constantly feeling other people's fields, and they're feeling yours. Way 14. Trust your immediate felt sense. Watts taught this relentlessly. Your first impression of someone, before you think about it, is usually accurate. You walk into a room and immediately feel welcomed or uncomfortable. You meet someone and instantly feel at ease or on guard. This isn't mysticism. It's your nervous system reading their nervous system. You're feeling their field, but then your mind kicks in with its rationalizations. Don't judge people. Give them a chance. Maybe you're being unfair, and you override your direct perception with social conditioning. Way 15. Notice how your body feels around them. This is Watts's most practical technique. Your body is a biosensor. Does your chest open or contract around this person? Does your breathing deepen or become shallow? Do you feel energized or drained after spending time with them? Your body is giving you precise feedback about their energetic state and your compatibility with it. Stop ignoring this data. Way 16. Feel whether they're pulling energy or generating it. Watts made a crucial distinction. Some people are energy drains, some are energy sources. You can feel this instantly if you pay attention. Energy drains leave you exhausted after interaction. They're unconsciously pulling from your field to fill their emptiness. Energy sources leave you feeling more alive. They're generating surplus energy and it overflows naturally. You don't need to psychoanalyze why someone drains you. Just feel it and honor that information. Way 17. Notice if they're in their body or in their head. This is huge for Watts. Someone who's fully embodied has a grounded, present energy. You can feel they're here. Someone who lives in their head has a floaty, disconnected energy. You can feel they're somewhere else, even when looking at you. Most people are disembodied, trapped in thoughts about past and future. When you meet someone who's actually present in their body, it's striking. The energy is completely different. Watts described meeting D.T. Suzuki, the Zen master who introduced Zen to the West. Watts said before they spoke a word, he could feel the quality of Suzuki's presence. It wasn't charismatic or dramatic. It was simply settled, like meeting someone who'd stopped arguing with reality. The field was relaxed, spacious, present. Watts said you could learn more from being in that field for 5 minutes than from reading 1,000 books about Zen. This is the level most people never access, feeling level perception. We're so trapped in our heads, in analysis and interpretation, that we've atrophied our ability to simply feel what's there. But children do this naturally. Animals do this constantly. You used to do this before you were trained to override your felt sense with social convention. The invitation is to recover this ability. Stop thinking about people and start feeling them. Your body already knows who they are. You just need to get quiet enough to receive the transmission. Watts's deepest insight about reading people. Everyone is playing a game, wearing a mask, performing a role, but underneath every game is the authentic self trying to emerge. This is where Watts's teaching gets compassionate rather than cynical. Yes, everyone's performing. Yes, the ego is constantly maintaining its social persona. But Watts didn't see this as something wrong to be judged. He saw it as a cosmic game we're all playing, and reading people means seeing both the game they're playing and the real person underneath trying to be seen. Way 18. Ask yourself, what game are they playing? Watts taught that everyone has a primary game, the victim game, the hero game, the intellectual game, the spiritual game, the rebel game, the caretaker game. You don't need to judge the game, just recognize it. When you see someone's game clearly, their behavior becomes completely predictable and comprehensible. Someone playing the victim game will interpret every situation as further evidence that life is against them. Someone playing the hero game will create problems to solve so they can maintain their identity as the savior. Someone playing the intellectual game will turn every conversation into a chance to demonstrate their knowledge. Once you see the game, you see the whole pattern. But here's the compassionate part. Watts always emphasized, underneath the game is someone desperately trying to be seen for who they really are. The victim wants to be acknowledged. The hero wants to feel valuable. The intellectual wants to feel worthy. Every game is a strategy for getting a core need met, and usually a strategy they learned in childhood that's no longer working. When Watts taught people to read others, he wasn't teaching manipulation. He was teaching compassionate perception. See the game they're playing. See why they're playing it. See the authentic self that would emerge if they felt safe enough to stop playing. Then you can interact with both the game they need to play and the person they wish they could be. One of Watts's longtime friends described this quality. Allan could see through everyone, but you never felt judged by him. He'd see your ego games, your defenses, your pretensions, and somehow his seeing them didn't make you want to hide more. It made you want to drop the game, because he was clearly seeing past it anyway. He was reading you accurately, but meeting you with compassion, rather than judgment. This is the highest level of reading people, seeing through them completely, while creating safety for them to be seen. Seeing the mask while honoring the face underneath. Recognizing the game while respecting the player. Let me synthesize Watts's complete picture of how to read anyone instantly. Stop projecting your own conditioning onto others and start perceiving them directly. The biggest barrier to reading people is your own mind getting in the way. Everyone is constantly telling you exactly who they are, through what they say, what they don't say, and the energy behind their words. You just need to actually listen. The body never lies. Tension patterns, breathing, spatial relationships, and physical congruence reveal someone's true state beneath whatever their words are claiming. You can feel people's energetic fields before you understand them intellectually. Trust your immediate felt sense. Notice how your body responds around them, and stop overriding this direct perception with social conditioning. Everyone is playing a game, but underneath is an authentic self trying to emerge. Read people with compassion by seeing both the mask and the face underneath. This isn't about becoming manipulative or coldly analytical. It's about becoming present enough to perceive reality directly. When you drop your own filters, other people become transparent. Not because you've learned tricks, but because you've stopped blocking your natural perceptive ability with your own unconscious projections. If you've been frustrated by your inability to read people, feeling like everyone else has some secret knowledge you're missing, Watts would want you to know, you already have this ability. You're just covering it up with too much thinking. Every child can read people instantly. Every animal does it naturally. You used to do it before you were trained to override your direct perception with analysis. The skill isn't something you need to develop. It's something you need to recover. You're not missing information about people. You're missing presence with people. You're so busy analyzing, interpreting, judging, and protecting yourself that you're not actually here with them. And reading someone requires you to be here, fully, without agenda, without projection, without the filter of your own conditioning. This is an invitation to simplicity, not complexity. Stop trying to learn more techniques. Start removing the barriers to your natural perception. Stop thinking about people and start feeling them. Stop interpreting and start seeing. Stop protecting yourself long enough to actually perceive what's in front of you. The people you think are hardest to read are just the ones who trigger your own unconscious material most strongly. They're not mysterious. Your reaction to them is clouding your perception. Clear your own inner space, and everyone becomes readable. You already know how to do this. You've just forgotten. Watts is inviting you to remember. Reading people isn't a skill, it's a state of consciousness. The more present you become, the more transparent everyone else becomes. If you want to explore more of Allan Watts's insights for developing genuine presence and seeing through social games without becoming cynical, subscribe to this channel where I decode his teachings for people trying to navigate human relationships without losing themselves. Watch the video on your screen now about Watts's teaching on the ego's games and how to see through them compassionately. Remember what Watts said, the ego is not something we must destroy, but something we must understand. The same is true for reading others. You're not trying to manipulate or control, you are trying to see clearly. And clear seeing is the most compassionate gift you can offer another human being. Stop analyzing, start perceiving. The person in front of you is telling you everything. You just need to be present enough to receive it. You're not learning to read people, you're learning to stop blocking your ability to see them. That's the real skill. That's the only skill.